In the 1980s, the race to create the world's most iconic SLRs unleashed breakthroughs that changed photography forever. Canon's AE-1 program made automatic shooting. Mainstream Nikon's FM2 survived war zones with a mechanical shutter, hitting 1/4000th of a second, and Minolta's 7000 set off an autofocus revolution. But why did these 5 cameras, not their rivals, define the decade? This is the real story behind the top 5 iconic 80s SLRs and the forgotten battles that shaped what ended up in your hands next. So what determined who made history and who disappeared? Across the 1980s, the world of 35mm SLR cameras was reshaped by a fierce competition to make photography easier, faster, and more accessible. The decade saw a clear divide. On one side, manufacturers pushed the boundaries of automation and electronics, while on the other, traditionalists doubled down on mechanical reliability. Choosing the most iconic SLRs from this era means looking beyond just technical prowess or sales numbers. 4 key factors set these cameras apart: technical innovation, popularity and cultural reach, design influence, and enduring reliability. Innovation came in many forms, whether that meant the first truly effective autofocus system, a leap in metering technology, or a radical new approach to ergonomics. But a camera's impact wasn't measured only by what was inside the shell. Sales figures and the sheer number of hands a camera passed through mattered too. The AE-1 program, for example, didn't just introduce a new feature. It brought millions of new photographers into the SLR world, swelling film sales and changing how families documented their lives. These were cameras that shaped habits, not just headlines. Design played its own quiet role. The 1980s was a turning point where form and function collided. Some models, like the Canon T90, broke away from the boxy silhouettes of the past, introducing curves and controls that felt natural in the hand. Others, such as Nikon's F3, made subtle changes that would echo through decades of professional camera design. Ergonomics and usability became as important as raw specs, and the best cameras of the decade left a legacy that modern digital bodies still follow. Reliability was non-negotiable, especially for professionals and war correspondents who needed a tool that could survive dust, cold, and the chaos of real-world assignments. Cameras like the Nikon FM2 earned cult status for their mechanical shutters, which fired without batteries and withstood the harshest conditions. Durability wasn't just a selling point, it was the difference between getting the shot and missing it forever. The market itself was splitting in new directions. Automation and electronic features made SLRs less intimidating for beginners, while advanced models continued to serve pros and serious hobbyists. By the mid-1980s, manufacturers offered a tiered lineup. Entry-level cameras with simple controls and program modes, enthusiast models with more manual options, and flagship bodies packed with the latest innovations. This segmentation allowed each brand to chase new customers without abandoning their loyal base. To judge these cameras fairly, the rubric is clear. Did the model introduce a breakthrough or set a standard? Did it reach a wide audience and influence photographic culture? Did its design leave a lasting mark? And does it still work as intended decades later? The cameras that answer yes to all 4 questions are the ones that endure, not just as collectibles, but as working tools and milestones in photographic history. The AE-1 program stands as the first case in point, a camera that redefined what an SLR could be for the everyday user. Canon's AE-1 program arrived in 1981, quietly rewriting the rules for everyday photography. The core of its appeal lay in Program AE, a mode that let the camera think for you, automatically choosing both shutter speed and aperture. For countless families, travelers, and first-time SLR owners, this meant no more fiddling with dials or worrying about missed shots. Just frame, focus, and press the button. The AE-1 program delivered results that felt effortless, and that simple confidence drew millions into film photography. Canon's engineers didn't just add an auto mode, they reimagined the SLR as a tool for everyone. The camera borrowed the solid chassis of the original AE-1, but swapped in new electronics and a microprocessor-driven brain. Shutter speed topped out at 1/1000th of a second with a 1/60th second flash sync, and the FD lens mount offered a deep well of glass for every budget. The viewfinder's LED readout glowed with exposure information, a small but reassuring sign that the camera was handling the math in the background. For those who wanted to experiment, a flick of the dial returned full manual control, but most users left it in program, trusting the camera to get it right. Sales numbers tell the story. Canon produced millions of AE-1 family cameras, with the program version leading the charge through the early 1980s. Internal reports from the period and later interviews with Canon staff credit the AE-1 program with a surge in film sales worldwide. Kodak and Fujifilm ramped up production to keep up with the new demand, as more people than ever brought home rolls of snapshots from vacations, graduations, and birthdays. The AE-1 program became a fixture at family gatherings, school events, and travel destinations. The SLR you could hand to a friend or relative and know you'd get a usable photo back. The camera's reputation grew well beyond technical circles. Collectors and enthusiasts today often recall the one-button confidence it brought to family photography. As one long-time owner put it, the AE-1 program made capturing memories fun again. It fed my children's film habit for years, and I never worried if the shot would come out. That sense of reliability and ease is why so many working examples still turn up at flea markets and online auctions, their light seals and battery compartments checked by a new generation of film fans. The AE-1 program's influence reaches further than just its own sales. By lowering the barrier to entry, it changed who picked up an SLR in the first place. It made sophisticated photography less intimidating, and in doing so, it fueled a worldwide boom in amateur picture taking. The program AE system became a template for other brands, and its approach to automation set expectations for what a mass-market camera should deliver. Even as faster, tougher, or more advanced models appeared later in the decade, the AE-1 program's blend of simplicity and trustworthiness remained a gold standard for accessibility. In the hands of millions, it turned everyday life into photographs worth keeping. In 1985, the Minolta 7000 arrived with a single disruptive promise: autofocus at your fingertips, built right into the camera body. For years, autofocus was the stuff of awkward add-ons and slow, unreliable experiments. Minolta's engineers, working behind closed doors in Osaka, set out to change that. They spent 3 years wrestling with noisy motors, battery drain, and the challenge of making a camera that could focus faster than any human hand. The solution took shape as the A-mount system, an electronic handshake between lens and body that let the camera drive focus with precision. This wasn't just a bolt-on feature. The 7000's sensors, motor, and microprocessor worked together, tracking subjects and snapping to focus with a soft beep that became the new sound of speed. The 7000's debut at the 1985 Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas sent shockwaves through the industry. Dealers placed bulk orders on the spot. Competing engineers crowded Minolta's booth, snapping photos of the cutaway models, trying to decode the secrets inside. The camera's grip and controls were designed for single-handed shooting: focus, compose, and fire, all in one motion. For action and sports photographers, the 7000 meant a real chance to keep up with the moment, not just react to it. But the story didn't end with the launch. The A-mount's electronic design triggered a wave of patent disputes. Honeywell, a major player in autofocus technology, took Minolta to court, arguing that the 7000 system infringed on their intellectual property. After years of legal battles, Minolta agreed to a settlement and paid royalties, a move that pushed every camera maker to rethink their own autofocus strategies. The 7000's legacy is everywhere. Its A-mount lived on into the Sony digital era, and its approach to in-body autofocus set the standard for decades. In a single leap, Minolta changed how quickly and confidently photographers could work, making autofocus not just a feature, but the future of SLR photography. In 1983, Nikon released the FA, a camera that quietly introduced a revolution in exposure control. At the heart of the FA was matrix metering, Nikon's term for the world's first multi-segment computer-evaluated exposure system. Instead of relying on a single light reading at the center or a weighted average, the FA divided the viewfinder into 5 distinct zones. Each zone was measured separately, and the onboard microprocessor compared these readings to a database of real-world scenes. The camera then calculated the optimal exposure, balancing highlights and shadows in ways that earlier systems simply couldn't match. To understand the leap, consider a classic challenge: a portrait subject standing in front of a bright window. Older SLRs with center-weighted metering would often underexpose the face, leaving it in deep shadow, or blow out the background entirely. The FA's matrix metering, by reading the bright and dark areas independently, could recognize the backlighting and adjust exposure to preserve detail in both the subject and the window. In practical use, this meant more keepers straight out of the camera, even in tricky lighting. The technical backbone was a silicon photodiode array and a custom-programmed microchip, an early sign of computing power entering the SLR world. Photographers could still select center-weighted or spot modes, but matrix quickly became the go-to. Period tests in magazines showed side-by-side results. Matrix metering consistently delivered balanced exposures in scenes that stumped even experienced users with manual meters. The FA's innovation didn't just raise the bar for Nikon, it set a new standard for the entire industry. Within a few years, multi-segment metering would become a fixture in nearly every advanced SLR and eventually digital camera. The FA's matrix system was the blueprint, quietly shaping the way photographers approached exposure for decades to come. Nikon's F3 arrived in 1980, setting a new standard for what a professional SLR could be in both form and function. The company turned to Giorgetto Giugiaro, the Italian designer behind some of the era's most celebrated cars, to give their flagship a modern identity. The result was an industrial silhouette, clean, angular lines interrupted by a single red accent running down the grip. That red stripe became an instant signature, signaling a break from the utilitarian look of earlier models. Giugiaro's touch extended beyond aesthetics. The F3 introduced a subtle hand grip, oversized shutter release, and control placements refined through hours of observation of working photojournalists. Every dial and button was tested for operation in gloves, in the rain, or with the camera pressed to an eye in the chaos of a news event. Underneath the bold exterior, the F3 was Nikon's first pro SLR to rely on an electronic shutter, a decision that sparked debate among seasoned shooters. Many professionals accustomed to the mechanical dependability of the F2 worried about battery failure or circuit faults in the field. Nikon responded with exhaustive reliability testing, including certification for NASA's space shuttle missions. The F3's titanium honeycomb shutter and backup mechanical release at 1/60th of a second reassured users that even if the electronics failed, the camera would not leave them stranded. The F3 quickly became the camera of choice for frontline photographers and magazine assignments, its robust build and weather sealing earning praise from those who worked in extremes. A design historian writing in Industrial Design Journal put it simply, Giugiaro's F3 was the first SLR to look and feel like a precision tool for modern professionals. The red stripe wasn't just a flourish, it announced a new era of camera design. Today, the F3's influence is still visible in Nikon's pro bodies, and its reputation for reliability continues to attract collectors and working shooters alike. NASA's documented use of the F3 on multiple shuttle missions stands as proof of its durability, while the red line remains a mark of professional intent. For those seeking a camera that blends style, engineering, and field-tested trust, the F3 remains a benchmark. Launched in 1982, the Nikon FM2 earned its reputation as the SLR that never quits. At its heart is a shutter engineered for extremes. Titanium blades arranged in a honeycomb pattern, slicing open and closed at speeds up to 1/4000th of a second. No electronics drive this mechanism. It's all gears, springs, and precision metalwork, designed to fire reliably in blistering heat or biting cold. For photojournalists, this meant one less thing to worry about when batteries died or sand worked its way into every crevice. Steve McCurry reached for his FM2 in the dust and chaos of the Afghan border, trusting that mechanical shutter to deliver the frame that became Afghan Girl. War correspondents and sports shooters alike praised the FM2 as a camera you could trust when everything else failed. Collectors still hunt for early models with the original titanium shutter, knowing these are the survivors. Cameras built to outlast the decade and maybe the century. In 1986, Canon released the T90, a camera that looked and felt nothing like its predecessors. The rounded, sculpted body was the work of designer Luigi Colani, whose philosophy insisted that tools should fit the human hand as naturally as possible. The T90's contours flowed in a way that broke from the sharp, boxy lines of the past. Every curve was shaped for comfort and speed, from the deep grip to the thumb wheel that let photographers change settings without breaking their hold. Kalani's original sketches pushed for even bolder forms, but Canon's engineers balanced his vision with the realities of mass production, arriving at a design that was both futuristic and practical. Inside, the T90 was just as ambitious. A trio of CPUS-powered features like multi-spot metering, a system that let users average up to 8 different light readings for perfect exposure, and a film advance motor that fired at 4.5 frames per second, faster than many pro cameras of the era. Controls were reimagined, with electronic buttons replacing mechanical levers and a top-mounted LCD providing instant feedback. The T90 earned the nickname the Tank for its solid build, but its real legacy was in its feel and speed. Every Canon EOS camera that followed borrowed from the T90's design language, from the hand grip to the control wheel. For collectors and working photographers alike, the T90 stands as the moment when camera design caught up with the way people actually shoot, blending form and function into a single, seamless tool. For every headline-grabbing SLR of the 1980s, dozens more shaped the photographic landscape in quieter ways. Pentax found its niche with the ME Super, a camera praised for its slim body and the unusual choice of push buttons to control shutter speed. Compact, intuitive, and easy to slip into a jacket pocket. The Super A, known as the Super program in the US, took things further by introducing TTL flash metering in a camera this small. Photographers could trust the camera to measure light through the lens and cut the flash at just the right moment, a feature usually reserved for higher-end gear. Olympus built its reputation on shrinking the SLR without sacrificing function. The OM2N and OM4 kept the system's signature lightness, making them favorites for street shooters and travelers. The OM10, meanwhile, lowered the entry price, offering the OM line's handling and style to a new wave of beginners. On the premium side, Yashica's FXD and the Contax 139 Quartz stood out for their partnership with Carl Zeiss. Both used the Contax/Yashica bayonet mount, opening the door to legendary Zeiss optics in a reliable Japanese body. For those watching their budget, Ricoh's KR series offered sturdy, all-metal construction and Pentax K-mount compatibility, earning a reputation as dependable workhorses for students and newcomers alike. By 1986, over 2 million Canon AE-1 program cameras had reached users worldwide, a testament to the decade's drive for accessibility and innovation. The Minolta 7000's 1985 debut marked the first commercially successful autofocus SLR, while Nikon's FA introduced matrix metering in 1983, setting new technical standards. Yet the unmatched reliability of the Nikon FM2 and the pioneering design of the Canon T90 proved that mechanical excellence and ergonomic breakthroughs could coexist. Although internal development files for some models remain restricted and the full extent of design collaboration, such as Luigi Colani's influence on later EOS systems, has yet to be fully documented, the evidence is clear. The 1980s SLR boom changed how millions captured the world. Today's digital cameras still draw on these innovations in automation, design, and reliability. The legacy of these 5 models is not just in their features, but in how they set the template for every camera that followed.